Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we've got a really interesting show today, and an important show because I know that you've been involved with TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program with Bonnie Carroll, and you have met some fabulous people there, and I know one of them that holds your heart is the son of the couple we're going to have on today. And could you talk a little bit about who they are and introduce them? And then we want to show it, tell people a little more about TAPS and show a clip.
Sure, Mom. Well, I'll start off telling you about TAPS. It's the Tragedy Assistance Program for survivors of military loss. So it's families that have had someone die that has been in the military. And I had the honor of serving on their advisory board, and I've done that for many years now. Like you said, Bonnie Carroll is the founder. And I run a lot of the sibling stuff. I work at their national conferences and some regional conferences, and they're an amazing organization. And the person you're referring to that I know is Donn Weaver. And he's an incredible guy. I met him in 2011. His brother Todd died while in Afghanistan. And Glenn not only is there to help himself, he gives back to the other siblings. He's there for the other siblings. And, you know, he's just a lifeline to so many out there who don't know how they're going to survive. And he and Todd were very close, so I'm really excited to have his parents on the show today. I'd never met them until this summer at TAPS, and Glenn and I got together. He was in my workshop, and he showed a very moving video of a place that he went where his brother had died. He went and put a cross up and did a memorial in his honor in Afghanistan. And afterwards, he came up to me and said, "Heidi, you've got to meet my parents. They're here." And I went, "What? This is so great." So I got to meet them, and fast forward, here they are. That's the short story, and they're incredible people,
right?
As you know.
Jeanne is a fabulous artist, and we're going to be showing you some of her work. And Donn has been in the service at one time, right, Donn? And
in the Army,
a former Army officer,
and then you were
Foreign Service officer of 35 years.
Right, and then you were in the diplomatic Corps.
The Foreign Service Diplomatic Corps.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So he
fantastic.
did that for 35 years, and now Glenn is doing something like that, right?
He's on his 22nd year.
Yeah, that's
and he's
incredible.
over in Afghanistan right now.
He was also an Army officer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what an incredible family! And you said something today that I loved, that you love the Army, and
yes.
I just thought that's so awesome. Well, we want to show a little bit of tribute to Bonnie Carroll before we get more with the Weavers and hear and see some of Jeanne's fabulous art. So let's do a little clip of Bonnie Carroll on one of TAPS. And one of the things I want to say about this clip, at the very beginning, you're going to see a wedding, and that is Bonnie Carroll with her husband, who died in the military in a plane accident in Alaska. And she started TAPS. It's totally kind of her baby, and it's an amazing thing that Bonnie's done for the world.
My husband was killed in an Army aviation accident with 7 other soldiers.
TAPS brings together survivors of those who served in all branches of the armed forces to share their experiences and learn how to cope with their grief. Through national and regional seminars and good grief camps, retreats, and TAPS Run and Remember team events, TAPS provides hope and healing for the families and loved ones of our fallen heroes.
As the media reports troop drawdowns and more service members coming home, TAPS actually is receiving more families today than ever before. It's risk-taking behavior, it's motorcycle accidents, it's toxic exposure or cancer deaths. It's tragedies like suicide, and we need help and support. What we do isn't therapy, but it is therapeutic. It changes lives.
Well, Donn and Jeanne, thank you so much for being on, and also thank you for the service that you've done and that your children have done for this country.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
It's really, really touching. Now, Donn, I know you're really proud of Jeanne as an artist and all the wonderful work she's done. Before your son was killed, you were an artist.
Yes.
And then you, it's amazing, Heidi, she did 21? Is it 21 or 23?
21 paintings in the series.
In the
But I've
series.
actually done 27 on the subject.
Wow.
The series had a very definite beginning and an end. Then other things happened that caused me to paint. Like I painted a painting that ended up being the subject matter for Memorial or other type things. And it was still about Todd and about the loss of Todd. But the series itself is spiritually 21 paintings.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Amazing. Now, let's just talk about TAPS a little bit, and then I want you to show that book. You went to TAPS right after.
I did go before Todd was dead a year, I went to TAPS.
Wow.
But Jeannie could not go.
Yeah.
And I went with our children, and I was not comfortable there because everybody goes through grief differently, and I heard too many stories that were made me feel down instead of where I wanted to be because of my pride in what Todd had done, selfishly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And Todd was an amazing person, I have to say. He was a hero. He died a hero, and he was a hero in so many ways before he died. He was a really outstanding guy.
He was a ranger, right?
Yeah. His sister, in the eulogy that she gave at the celebration of life, one of the things that she said is, he was always my hero. And there were so many people who felt that about him. He was everyone's best friend. He was a magnet towards people and friendship, and he was wonderful.
Well, and he took everything to the highest standard.
Yes, he did.
I mean, he graduated Phi Beta Kappa from William and Mary. He was an Army Ranger. He had great grades. He was in stellar shape. I mean, he just took everything. He lived life really to the fullest.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. And we came up with a quote very early on, and it is a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it says,
It's not the length of life, but the
the
depth.
depth of life. And that's the way Todd was. Every
Yes.
day, he lived it to the fullest.
He really
And
did.
you want to hold up that book for us? Yeah, this wonderful book that Jeannie has. You did it together?
No, it's my book.
It's your book.
Yeah.
Okay, different things that people have said, but also some of the things we're talking about today you can get in this book. It's a fabulous book, and also the pictures. So we'll be talking about that more later.
Great.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit about how men and women grieve differently when we were talking. Is it different having a military loss? For you, it sounds like, Donn, it is.
From my perspective, the most important thing for me to do was to lead the family as the senior survivor. By the way, my father is still alive. He's a World War II veteran,
Wow.
90 years old, lives in California.
Wow.
He was hurt the most by this because of all of us were hurt a lot, but he was hurt he could not talk on the phone for weeks after Todd was killed.
Wow.
How is it that I could go through World War II, Guadalcanal, D-Day, and not be killed, and my grandson dies? And that was very, very hard. But my first reaction was to work with the family, convince the family that we have to establish a legacy, that Todd's, what he had done as a volunteer, fought in 2 wars, enlisted soldier, then became an officer. We had to do things to honor his legacy. Within 10 days of his death, I convinced the family, who did not want to come originally, to go to a high school football game where his jerseys were retired and a scholarship announced. 10 days.
Wow.
Everyone
wanted
was
to
mad
go.
at him for doing that, but oh, how wonderful that he had the foresight to see what would come from that.
Absolutely.
So you're leading the family, and
Yeah.
Jeannie, talk about you as an artist, because I was saying to you, as an artist, I'm sure you read people's faces and are really in an in-depth place with
Right, but at
energy.
first, when Todd died, I wasn't thinking of painting or anything about it. My studio closed, and it was dark, and but it was probably within a couple of weeks after Todd was killed. Our family came together, and we were sitting in the living room, and we were talking, and we were saying, okay, what are we going to do to build a legacy for Todd? And from that, the scholarship that is given from William and Mary was that idea was conceived.
And you raised $70,000
Yes,
with
and
armbands.
yes,
What did they
exactly,
say?
Wow.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
One tribe, one family.
One tribe, one family.
I
I
love
love that. And
The
they told
nickname
you
of William
you'd have to have
Mary's tribe.
$50,000 for
Yeah.
a scholarship, and you raised 70 with that
They said
armband.
that not
Fabulous.
one family, other than our wealthy family who just gave the money, had ever raised the money in 30 years in the 1-year time limit.
Wow.
And because Todd was so well known there, and we didn't have to do anything ourselves. It was organized by
Yeah, we
students
never-
and by other groups, and soon there was all that money.
We never
sent out a lot of
planned
emails.
anything.
That's incredible.
That's fabulous.
So it speaks to him, to
Well,
Todd and who he
So,
was.
so on that day, as we were discussing things, and the kids had all decided on different things that they were going to do, and I suddenly piped in and said, "What am I going to do?" And they said, "Well, Mom, you're going to paint." and I thought, no, just ugly pictures came into my mind, fire and ugliness and sadness, and I thought, how can I do this? But then I began to listen to the words that were being said by his friends and other people, and those particular words brought paintings into my mind.
Wow.
And I just really felt like I was guided through the entire process of painting 21 paintings in 1 year's time.
That's incredible. If
It
somebody
is.
told you, would you
That's
please paint
amazing.
21 paintings?
Some of
That's
these
a lot.
canvases are really large too.
Wow.
But that was basically, I painted 7 days a week,
Wow.
8, 10, 12 hours a day.
Now, what was the first?
The first were his shoes.
Oh, I love this.
me
His
too.
baby shoes, and they're red.
Yeah,
They're
the
gorgeous.
baby shoes.
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorites.
And the baby shoes
Darling.
and his boots that came back from
And then in
Afghanistan.
between,
And then
Wow.
yeah,
And where are his boots? Let me see his boots.
his boots.
Wow.
they are so beautiful. Now, where are these hanging? Where are they?
These are in our house. Yeah, we
Here.
have, now that we're living in Florida and we're in a condo, we don't have quite as much room, so they're not all hanging, but they're all in, my possession. These shoes, his cleats, I had no idea that we had. And it was just about a week before Thanksgiving, and I had decided that we would have a family Thanksgiving. And the year before, when Todd was there, we had had 31 people to our house, family, for Thanksgiving, and I had decided we would do it again, that Todd would want us to have the Thanksgiving. So I headed up to the attic to be able to find those things that I needed to be able to put on this huge Thanksgiving. And suddenly, on a box, were these cleats. I have no idea why they were there. And they were just filled with mud and dirt, and I remember cradling them in my arms and taking them downstairs and putting them on a bench, a stool in the kitchen. Well, we had Todd's dog, Tundra, and I left the door open so that Tundra could go in and out. And Tundra came into the house and she grabbed one of these and she ran outside with it. I mean, obviously she smelled Todd.
And that was his Alaskan Husky,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That's
exactly.
incredible.
And I was so upset because it began to rain and the mud was drizzling off of them. But it was this experience which caused me to then want to paint the three pairs of shoes.
Wow.
Ah, so it was
trilogy.
these were
Yes,
the first that
yes.
you did.
A trilogy. I
Now,
love
was
that.
this the first painting you did?
These three I did together.
How was it? Did you just cry the whole way doing it?
I cried through all 21 paintings. I painted to music. Glenn created a CD for me that had a lot of music on it, a lot of it from Sarah Groves, and a lot of it was also country music that Todd loved, Zach Brown, and I painted to that music. I listened to it, and I cried. I cried
Understandable.
for a year.
Yeah.
But the entire experience was so therapeutic to me, and it was almost like going into a meditative state throughout the whole
Now,
thing.
one of the pictures I thought was really interesting was the one where they came to tell you that he died, and the doorbell rang and you didn't know, and you could see somebody through the window, and you could see them in their uniforms, and you thought about your uncle
Yeah.
who had died in World War II.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's such an interesting painting because you've got your uncle up at the side, and then your son, and then the doorway. It's a pretty amazing piece.
It took me a long time to get up the courage to paint that. And I actually began to do sketches and whatnot at the same time of the morning. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'd begin to do sketches and look at the light and how it came in. And but I'm so glad I did it, because it just helped me to be able to get through that. And that's, of course, what art does. It does help you, just like music. So I was using both music and art to be able to get through it.
Do you know what comes up for me is when you do a picture, or when you write a description of what happens, they say that it kind of takes it out of your mind, and you're able to put it down on paper, and you know it's there, so you don't have to keep replaying it to make sure you remember it the right way or whatever.
Exactly.
It's kind of there, and now you can have peace.
Exactly.
Around an event.
That's exactly what happened. And I mean, the one painting that I did of the pomegranates.
Oh yes, the pomegranate.
Yeah.
And then later on you found out that where he had stepped on an IUD and died while he was deployed, and there was a pomegranate
farm right next door.
Farm next door.
It was a pomegranate orchard.
Wow.
Is where he died. And actually, I wasn't sure. I sort of had a feeling about this. And later on, his commanding officer said, yes, that's exactly what happened. But I mean, I would just be nauseous if I saw pomegranates. I couldn't be close to them until I said, okay, I'm going to paint this painting.
Right.
And then it was fine.
So you kind of purged.
Exactly.
Got it out.
I purged through the painting.
That's amazing.
Right.
And it's lovely. It's a lovely painting with the pomegranates. I love the tablecloth and the way you got the texture. And it was
Thank you. Well, I think
really
that the one
lovely.
thing that was very important is that I waited until, with each painting, I waited until I could do something that was deserving of Todd. You know, they needed to be beautiful, beautiful paintings, and the very best that I could do, because they represented Todd.
Right.
And I think I did a good job.
Yeah, you did a fabulous job. You're such a wonderful artist. I loved a picture of him with the baby in the swimming pool.
Oh, yeah.
So touching. That must have really been a tough one.
Yeah, because Kylie is just this beautiful little girl. Of course, now she's first grade, second grade.
Just started first grade in Guam.
In Guam.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Todd, if I may just say, Todd thought about his position as a father, as a husband, very, very much. He prepared letters that are very rare among military people. If you receive this, I will have made it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Go forward with your life. Find somebody else.
Wow.
Within 3 years, Emma was remarried to a Navy diver. They live on Guam, and Kylie now has a new dad, and Dada Todd.
Oh, that's
And
neat.
they are apart. And Donn was earlier talking about this business about, can you love two men?
Yeah.
And she has.
She does. She has
Yeah,
two
she
dads.
does.
And it's okay with you that she does.
It's
Oh, yeah.
very okay.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
They had another child, a son, after they were married a couple of years. She called us from Guam. Jeannie, Donn, you have your 10th grandchild. Not really.
That's
but
incredible.
But we consider him
That's
that way.
incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're very lucky because we have a good relationship with Emma and with her new husband, Alex. And
That's wonderful.
This is a very serious problem in many TAPS people.
Yes.
The grandparents are out
Yes, you're right.
of the picture because
And
they have too
grandparents
much
don't have a lot of
memory.
rights in this country,
That's right.
whether people know that or not. It's
Yeah.
there are not a lot of rights. in this
But you know, it doesn't come. You have to work at it,
Yeah.
and you have to be forgiving, and you have to be loving, and it's work.
I really appreciated as I read the book about the fact that you really ask her for everything. You know, would you mind if I painted these shoes?
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind if I did this? You were very respectful of, you didn't just barge ahead as an artist and say there was, I guess that's an important thing for art.
is.
No bad karma, right?
Right, exactly. In fact, this other painting that I brought,
yes, show that.
these were 3 items that I had to ask Emma if I could borrow, you know, in order to paint them, because these were 3 items that came back from Afghanistan that Todd had worn in Afghanistan, and I felt like I really needed to do that. And the gloves I mean, to me, I wanted to paint the gloves so that I could see every crease that his hand had made. You know, but when I went to set it up, there was dirt from Afghanistan in the gloves, so I painted that dirt into the painting.
That's amazing. That is really incredible.
Now you're saying you painted the dirt in, you made it in
Yeah,
the,
it's in the painting.
right in
It's
there.
right in here. If you feel it, you can
Oh,
feel the
wow.
sand.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, feel that. You can feel
the
it.
sand.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is.
So, but this was a case where it was, Emma, may I borrow? And then, you know, get them back to her. The other neat thing about this painting is that this is a hat that she gave me. This is a hat that came back from Afghanistan. This was not Todd's cap. This cap belonged to the chaplain.
Oh, wow.
You see the cross on it.
Yes.
And it was the craziest thing. And I remember saying to Donn, this cap has a cross on it, you know, and it was almost as though I was supposed to, that was a message to me. I felt very strongly about it. And I believe that the chaplain must have put this in Todd's effects as a way for us to remember the relationship that he had with Todd.
Wow, that's
That's
powerful.
beautiful. Very, very powerful.
If I may say, Todd, going back to military service and volunteering for tough assignments, Todd was an infantry officer, and he has done so well. He was promoted and sort of in charge of a company executive officer out of combat. This particular unit had lost 7 guys killed within 5 weeks.
Wow.
So they asked for volunteers. So Todd volunteered to join this artillery unit and worked with them for 6 weeks, and they did miraculous turnaround. Todd was the last person killed in that unit for the next 9 months.
Wow.
Because once he was killed, they realized they were doing something different and wrong. And this was the time when the IEDs had been changed over. So the dogs were not sniffing them properly. Our mechanical minesweepers weren't working well.
Oh, wow.
So all that changed. So we met these soldiers that knew Todd when they came back the next summer, and they confirmed that he had saved many of their lives.
I was
they
thinking
said,
that.
and that he was the last one killed. There were some seriously wounded, but no other soldier from the entire battalion was killed. So that is a legacy from a military point of view that you
Absolutely.
like to say of leadership.
Yeah.
And we
Absolutely.
really don't get the understanding, I don't think, by watching the news or here in America of the kind of fighting that they were doing. But his commanding officer said it was very much like Vietnam. I mean, this was not, you know, easy combat that they were going through. And in fact, that unit received the Presidential Unit Citation.
One
Right.
of the most famous Army units was depicted on Band of Brothers, 101st Airborne Division. Todd did so well with his ROTC, he selected that, he joined them.
That's amazing.
And within that particular 2-year period that the 101st was there, his battalion was the only one to receive the Presidential Unit Citation,
Wow.
which is a separate award unit-wide. And that battle, and remember that Kandahar was the birthplace of the Taliban. They did not want to give that up. They still don't.
Right, right. Let me borrow that book for a minute because I just
Please.
want to show this because it's a picture of Jeannie's son, one of your paintings. Is that one of the big ones?
That's one of the big ones,
Okay,
right.
a big
yeah.
paint. And where is
Yeah.
that hanging? Is
That's
that
hanging in my house.
All right,
I
a
like
picture of
that.
him. And also, in the front of this book, I really think that it fascinated me, the Ranger Credo in the book. I thought that was wonderful, and it's just got so many memorial things about Todd, but also quotes and sayings. And then, how many of your pictures are in here? Or all of them?
All of them, I believe.
Okay.
Well, maybe there's one that's not.
Yeah.
But,
So, and if you want to see more of these pictures that are in this book, but it's a wonderful book. And how do they find it? Do you have a website, Jeannie?
I do have a website. There's a dedicated website for the book by its title's name, but it's also on Amazon. It's available on Amazon.
Okay, so Lizzie and Todd, you know, I was, one of the things that I really, the stories that are in the book, so I wanted to talk about it a little more, are so interesting because you really talk about how it is to have somebody killed, the funeral, the, you know, why things are important, how the motorcycle people, is that who they are, came?
Patriot
Talk
Guard
about that a
Riders.
little bit. They
Riders.
are fun. And that picture you did
like
of the
that.
guy with the big beard, I had to laugh.
Yeah, right.
fun.
But they were, They were wonderful. I mean, it was the Westboro cult came to both the celebration
is it
of
called?
life. The Westboro. The
Have you ever
Westboro
heard? The Westboro cult is a very negative anti-military group out of Kansas that tries to picket military funerals
Right,
around the
right.
country.
And yeah, I remember hearing that.
They
and
came to Todd's funeral in Virginia and at
awful.
Arlington.
Yeah,
Both
and
of them.
they don't let it. They're outside the gate, right? Picketing.
In Arlington, they're outside the gate, but in Williamsburg at the Celebration of Life, they were as close as they could get to the church.
Wow.
And the Patriot Guard, they knew that they were coming, and so they were there to make a wall, basically, to make sure that they wouldn't disturb us.
And there's a picture of them with,
Yeah,
with
right.
them being a wall.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they
I
were the
received a
guys with
phone
the
call that day
motorcycles,
from a
right?
journalist in Canada, and which I thought was not a very nice thing to do, but I remember this phone call, and they wanted to know what I thought about. It was before we went to the church.
I mean, this is like how many days since Todd's?
About 10, 12 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Right.
had the celebration of life first, and then later on burial at
And
Arlington
then you have a
National
journalist
Cemetery.
call you,
Right, yeah, so this journalist, and we were open to journalists, but this one was looking for me to break down, and I just said, no, I mean, I don't care, they would not affect me at all. But they were there, and they protected us, and then they did the most wonderful thing, they guided us home. They escorted us.
On 30 miles on interstate, every intersection blocked, 45
Yeah.
motorcycles.
Wow.
It was
The
wonderful.
police authorized it.
It
It
was
was
just
just a
wonderful.
wonderful thing.
It
Yeah,
was so
that's
powerful.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I know those funerals at Arlington are beautiful.
beautiful,
Yeah.
very
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a picture of the flag, which is a
Yes,
wonderful
yes,
picture.
yeah.
The folded flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened at the funeral for Todd, again going back to how special his service was, is that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs came, along with a lot of other people, and there were over 350 people. And we looked at that, and he lies in such honored grounds.
And
We
yeah.
were there yesterday in Arlington for the first time ever on the day that he died.
And yesterday was
As
the
a
day he died.
military guy, that's the enemy's day. That's not our day. But we decided to do it because we were coming here, so we stopped in Arlington first, and then drove the rest of the way to New York.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
doing that and for being on our show today. It's just been so fabulous having you on.
Thank
I
you
feel
for
so
having us.
honored.
Thank
I
you.
thought, I just prayed that I'd be able to do you service on this show.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
Todd is doing as much in his death as he did in his life to change the
People
world.
have not forgotten.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much again
Thank
for being
you.
on.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching this show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.